Hi, everybody. We're sitting here today with our friend, Ophelia.
Hello.
This is Talent Cannabis Sunset Session, and this is our 20th episode. For folks that are not familiar with the Talent and Cannabis Sunset Session, we interview executives, entrepreneurs, interesting people from the cannabis industry, hear their story, hear what they're working on, talk about the industry, and it's a lot of fun. So, number 20, lucky number 20 here today. And if you find yourself in LA ever and interested in being part of this, I would go ahead and info@flowerhire.com. So moving forward, I actually want to start with this, Ophelia.
Sure.
What is this beautiful mushroom terrarium that you've been working on here? Is this a COVID skill? What is this?
Yes, it's called a wonderful mushroom terrarium.
It's beautiful.
You just named it, .com. Trademark.
I already have the URL.
God damn it. But yes, this is what I learned for COVID. I've been growing mushrooms for quite a few years, but with COVID, glasses half full, I dived deep into this because you don't have to leave home to grow mushrooms. So this is a Pio Pino mushroom spawn bag. It's an Italian gourmet edible mushroom. It's quite delicious sauteed. And so it's a gift for you, and it'll just live in here and keep growing.
And it'll continue to produce delicious, edible, non-psychoactive mushrooms.
Nope, non-psychoactive.
Non-psychoactive.
No.
So, but you've been working a lot on mushroom-related education, and you can actually purchase this, correct?
Sure.
Or something like this, if you were so inclined.
Yep, but I tend to give away more than I actually sell. So probably if anyone asks for it, they would just get it for free. So, but I have to like you first.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I've passed the sniff test, and we're friends, and we've bumped into each other probably a dozen times over the last several years here in LA. Not over the last year, but 2017, 2018. So I want to take a step back. I mean, you are an artist, and before cannabis, we're doing lots of different things. When was that moment when you were like, this industry needs more examples of cannabis art, and you had the idea to found Stockpot Images, and also the Asian American for Cannabis Education? Like, what happened first, and how did you all of a sudden have that moment of like, this is my calling, and everything aligns to this?
Good question. So I came into weed not because I wanted to. It's basically pulled into it. I have my sister who has a condition that she could not get cannabis where she was in her country, so she came over to my place. I got my medical card and I went into a dispensary, not knowing anything, because we wanted to try to see if cannabis could help her condition, because basically her hands can't open, right? All her joints are stuck like stone. So I go into the dispensary and go, hey, and because rule number one, you never say you're buying it for someone else. You just go pretend.
Right.
So I bought a giant cookie, and of course the bud tender at this trap house dispensary didn't tell me how to use it. So I gave it to my sister, cookie, right? And she goes, oh. So she took a little bit the first night, she's fine. Second night she ate the rest of the cookie. And I looked on the package later, it's 250 milligrams. So basically.
That was in the Prop 215 days.
Oh yeah. So she just basically went insane overnight.
Was she overnight, not for 2 or 3 days?
No, just overnight. And so, but when I was looking at her, because she's about 88 pounds, and I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, you're a stoner. And then I thought, holy cow, I just called my sister a name, and I started crying. And I've been working in photography and stock photography for quite a long time. So I went up to my computer and typed in what I just called my sister on a very large, one of the biggest stock agencies in the world. And what came up were all these racist images of people of color and the keywords. Okay, you see the image, but then when you read the real racism below it, it said, okay, stoner, addict, criminal, drug dealer, just about everything that no one could ever get away with, because it was racist. So from then, a week later, I started Stockpot to change the perception of what people think.
Right.
Stoners are, right? And then Ace came right close after that too. I started with Tiffany Wu and Monica Lowe. They left a few months after because their careers were going really big, so I kept it. And that was to educate my own people, Asian Americans, about cannabis, because we had our own prejudices too. So I approached entrepreneurs, like you said, CEOs, doctors, researchers, to do interviews with them. And at the beginning, it was kind of hard because they didn't want to tell their family and be outed on the web, right? But I found really brave people who wanted to come out, and they talked about it. So that's how it all started. Plus, the other thing too, as you know, when you go into a conference, you look around, right, and it's all marshmallows.
It's all marshmallows with amazing beards. Usually.
Yes, amazing beards, tall marshmallows. And I love marshmallows. But I was looking for the raisin in the group, right? And I didn't see that either. So again, Asian Americans for Cannabis Education was to help other Asian Americans see that it wasn't what they thought it was, and that it's actually a great place to build a career, right? Well, it's wonderful, as you know, for flower hire.
Well, it is, because it is something that makes the world a better place, and it's something you find really passionate people that bring their skills to bear to help get this plan out to the masses and spread awareness. And obviously, you know, just based on the date today and what's happening in the world, you know, any ideas on what we as a community can do to help support the Asian American community based on the violence that's happened recently in Atlanta and what's going on there? I mean, it's terrible.
Well, the Chinese have been in the States for over 150 years. And until 1943, there was an exclusion law where we could not come here. And, well, women could not come here because they were afraid of us breeding, right? Or they thought we were going to go into something nefarious, right? So they just wanted the men to come here. They had to pay $500 a head tax, which is back then probably equivalent to about $10,000 a head.
Just as labor.
Yeah, to come in, they had to pay a head tax, come in, and once they were finished, they had to go back. So that was up until 1943. Right? Only after the war were we allowed to finally immigrate and build families. So you could almost see that as a first generation. So racism has been here for quite a long time, and it's not going to go away. How we can support other Asian Americans is just check in. Say, how are you doing? Everything okay? And also, right now, there are a lot of nonprofit groups to support, but I like supporting, say, this, the Asian Women's Shelter in San Francisco. They've been around since about 1988, and they supply room and shelter to women and their children, abused Asian American women. So that support groups like that. That's how we would do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's we have to talk about it, and just awareness, and you know, that isn't right. And if there's any organizations like that that can, you know, help, thanks for bringing them up. And to get to a less sobering topic, you know, did you invent the Nug Shot? Because, you know, when you're talking about beautiful photography around cannabis, and where you get all the trichomes and the crystals, and obviously, you know, bringing the art of the cannabis plant to bear, did you invent that?
No, I didn't. But I work with two of the photographers who practically invented it, Justin McIver and Griff Luttrell. Justin was a photographer for High Times for about 15 years, and he shot every nug that got entered in the contest, right? So that's how I got the biggest collection in the world of over 3,000 distinct strains. But if you can imagine me keywording all these images at night and looking at sort of kosher kush, one picture, and then Thunder F-U-C-K on another one, and
my favorite, Thunder F-U-C-K.
But putting them side by side, what's the difference? And after a while, I was really able to pick out from the sugar leaves, from the shape of the bud, the density, if it was tall and straight, if it was short, basically kind of figure out which strains they were. But to the person on the street, they all just look like green buds, unless they were purple, like a like a perp or something. Or Sunset Sherbet has a lot of colors in there too. But other than that, most people will not be able to tell one from the other. Even from smelling, if you know your terps, you can kind of go down to what it is, but not really.
Well, and now there's just so much hybridization and breeding that things contain little bits of everything.
Yeah.
And it's only increasing, right? So, you know, the Asian American Cannabis Education, that organization, cannabis has had a stigma associated with it for quite some time, and a lot of that's related to the images you saw online when you first searched for stoner. But what is the stigma in the Asian American community, and what was so compelling, considering that you brought your sister, you said? Your sister here to try to find health and wellness from the plant, and you know, and it was obviously something not available where she was from. Like, talking about that stigma and the importance of that sort of organization. Because I think any organization that supports bringing a diverse perspective and group of leaders and entrepreneurs and employees into this industry is a quality organization. But
it all starts with hope. If my sister came here with a hope that cannabis would help her, right, despite all what she knew about it, and so with people coming into it, it's hope for something new or something different, and to help change their lives. Also,
I'm sorry, I love that answer.
Oh.
I mean, I look at cannabis as it is hope. It's hope for the rise and rebirth of the American middle class in a lot of ways. If it's done correctly, it's hope to try to end and at least help start fixing systemic racism. It's hope for people in their career that want to believe in what they're doing again, to be who they are at work and try to make the world a better place. So I just love that answer.
Well, what you're doing is giving hope. Your company is giving people hope that they can come to you and say, well, I only have these skills. Would I be able to work in this industry? And you're actually interviewing them and telling them, well, maybe you can, right? So you're also offering hope to people to find work outside their bubble, right? Well, I can be a really great accountant, and I am. And maybe I should go in this because I can be a really great accountant in cannabis. So you are able to give hope to people who want to keep their skills but move further up. And also be cool. Yeah.
Hey, you can be cool working this generation's industry, right?
Yeah.
But cannabis for Asian Americans, is it because of all the immigration, over the last several generations?
That was because when, of course, your President Nixon, he also
not my president.
He put cannabis on Schedule 1, right? But also he made the United Nations also recognize it as a drug. So then China fell in line, not because they were afraid of it, because they wanted inclusion, right? And then eventually Nixon, of course, opened up China in 1976. So they were going to jump on the same boat he was.
Oh, yeah.
Because in China, we've been using it for 10,000 years at least. And so, because I think there's a book, I'm trying to remember the name, the Book of Eternal Secrets.
Yeah, the plant came from Tibet.
Yeah.
Like the original cannabis plant, like going back
the cradle of the earth.
Ago, came from China.
Yep. And hemp and everything else. A lot of stuff came from China. So, and still does. And
everything good.
And then it also has a nice, it's sort of come full circle where we are the biggest ancillary providers of everything in cannabis, right? So you may grow it, but we'll give you something to put it in, right? At a cheap price.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't order, remember, always order before Chinese New Year or else you won't get it.
That's actually it's something I learned when I first transitioned into this industry in 2017. That was I learned how much of a thing that was. I mean, there's a known 45-day shutdown.
We party.
Yes.
We party. We eat.
And people go home. You see family. And and the Chinese workday though is not an 8-hour workday, right? I mean, is it like a depending on.
Have you been in Alibaba buying stuff?
There's a table upstairs from Alibaba.
Because it's all of a sudden, they're 15 hours ahead and they should be asleep, and you get this ping, hello, yes, we can get that for you. Oh, damn, but,
My Alibaba experience was it was 3 times the amount to ship it than was to buy it.
Oh, yeah, always. It's like, a doob tube for 2 cents? That's great. Oh, but it's going to cost me $5,000 to ship it. Ooh. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
A balance.
So talk to me about like the parallels between cannabis and mushrooms, and obviously there's this plant-based wellness. Mushrooms are even more kind of stigmatized in a lot of ways. Also another Schedule I narcotic. Although there seems to be a recognition in the medical communities, especially for mental health, that there's a lot of phenomenal potential from psychedelic mushrooms. Right, and I've seen from an entrepreneurial standpoint, not all, but a lot of the same energy and the same type of people that have been looking at cannabis are now like, okay, the door for mushrooms is going to open up wide too. I'm all in there,
Yeah, because I think there's 2 paths, right? There's one path where we want to make money off of it because we saw what happened to cannabis. The other path is, no, this has to be a medicine, right? So there's 2 divergent paths here, and they're not going to meet quite yet. But the money side definitely needs this side to produce a product. And also mushrooms too. We've used them for thousands of years in China. I mean, reishi, lion's mane,
right.
Maybe not piopinos, but
I mean, I have the mushroom coffees,
yep.
right? I mean, they're superfoods. They prevent disease. They're anti-aging. They make your skin look good. All those wonderful things.
Reishi is a great skin rejuvenator, and now it's going into a lot of Korean products as well. So you start seeing mushrooms going into everything you can see on the shelf, especially in makeup and cosmetics. It's going to be reishi is going to be huge on that one. But okay, so the similarities between cannabis and mushrooms. Yeah. It's fun. It's on Schedule 1, and anything on Schedule 1, we just make our bucket list to go through. There's a couple there. There's a few on Schedule 1 that I'm not going to touch, but there's there's on my bucket list because if I get reincarnated, I'm not going to remember any of this stuff. So I want to do it all now because in my next life, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I took Molly. I didn't like it. But in my next life, I'll probably take Molly and not like it anyways. So Schedule 1 is all Schedule 1. But if you want to talk about the actual thing.
What has to happen for society to say, okay, the psychoactive version of this is medical?
Sanjay Gupta.
He's talking about it.
Yeah, look at what he did for weed and what he did for mushrooms. And also John Hopkins, because there's more research done on mushrooms than it has been on weed. Cannabis, that is.
Right.
So, and also it's proven that it has efficacy for PTSD, migraines, maybe some forms of ADHD, but it is plant-based. And also, okay, the two things that are completely different about cannabis is one expels oxygen, which is cannabis. This puppy here is like us. It breathes in oxygen and expels CO2. So that's why we got to give it a little air once in a while because it's going to suffocate in there. So that is the other difference. It's more like us than the plant behind your head.
Gotcha. And so you have multiple websites where you display your different versions of these. What's the name of it?
Oh,
Short Yellow.
The Short Yellow Gnome.
Where did that name come from? First of all, is that self-proclaimed?
Yeah, it's sort of like I thought.
Because I think you're Big O. That's my name.
Well, no, because I did everything that's on my driver's license. I'm short. I'm yellow on my driver's license. And I'm a gnome. So there you go.
Are you really of the forest?
Yes. It says, pick your religion, Hobbit.
So Short Yellow Gnome, though, displays your at-home mushroom grow kits. And you've also launched, I think now, 2 online educational courses.
Oh, yeah.
For growing mushrooms in your house.
Yeah.
Both varieties.
Yep.
Like for art and non-psychoactive, and also for psychoactive. Right? And so another COVID.
I don't grow it in my home, though. I just show you how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, well, there's cities now are starting to decriminalize certain parts of it. But what was the inspiration for bringing that sort of craft of growing any type of fungus in your home and turning it into expression? What was your inspiration?
Well, what is the driving mission or mantra for cannabis? It's called sharing. Right. Originally, it was all about sharing the plant.
100%.
Even puff and pass, which we'll probably never do again. Maybe in a year or so. I need to see your vaccine card before I'll take your puff. But
fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It's about sharing. So this is why should I keep it closed up and not share it? Because I learned it because it was free. I learned it online for free. So why am I making money off of it? I just want to give it to you and share and show you how to do it. Because before COVID, I did do a lot of classes on how to grow mushrooms. And I had scheduled a bunch of classes to show veterans up in Santa Cruz in April how to grow mushrooms. But of course, everything went by the side for free. Right? I think the more you teach people how to do something for free, the more it spreads the awareness about it. Right? Just like cannabis seeds. When I first started growing cannabis, or went into stock pot, I didn't know how to grow. So this woman came up to me, give me your hand. She said, Ophelia, this is a really tall woman like you. She's a white witch.
You have a strong grip.
Okay. And she took this mason jar and went boink, 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 like this. And there's all these seeds here. And she goes like this. And then she did that. And I said, so what's up? And she said, well, girl, you ain't in this business or industry or community if you can't grow a effing plant. Right? And I went, And so I took all these seeds home and I grew 23 plants my first year because I needed to know everything about the plant. So to be one with a mushroom, I had to learn everything about the mushroom too. Because I can't just talk about it and not know its whole life cycle process. So it's the same thing. So I grew, well, I still grow a ton of mushrooms, but I'm refining it. But I need to know this thing before I can go sell it, right? Like, so, yeah.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, it is artistic. Like this is, what is this version again? It's
Oh, Pio Pino.
Pio Pino.
It's a
This is not
Italian
your grocery
mushroom.
store mushroom. This is.
It's Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Sicily, you might be able to find this.
Don't leave it alone with your wife.
Yeah. No. Hey-o. What do people, you have another website, askophelia.com.
Uh-huh.
And what do people ask you? Do they ask you about mushrooms?
Yeah, they ask me how to grow, how to do this, how to get a job. And then basically I tell them the same thing.
Flower hire.
Yes, whatever you do best, just add cannabis to it. But if you're going to add to it, know everything and don't get stumped on a question, which is why I grew weed, because I did not want to get stumped. They said, well, if, the leaves are going this way. So I thought, yeah, that's a male. It's got balls coming out, right? So that way you're selling something. You got to know it, right? You have to know it. I can't sell butter unless I have a cow and I make my own butter. Right, so I'm not going to do. I should make butter now. I need a cow.
I mean, I think you could churn some really good butter.
Oh yeah, because the poo is really good for mushrooms too.
I mean, there you go. Everything you can reuse.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. I mean, this is grain in here, right?
Yep.
This isn't poo. This is grain.
Yeah. Yes.
Organic matter.
Yes. There's no poo in this one, because these kind don't like poo. They like wood and they like soy. The other mushrooms like the poo. They love poo.
Well, I like your advice about getting a job in the industry, because the first thing I tell people, the two main things, one is educate. Love the products, but don't leave with it. Learn about the molecules, the form factors, why people use it, the history of the plant, the history of how it got here, the history of the war on drugs, everything you possibly can about it. And second one is be humble, right? Be ready to not have the answers, have to think on your feet, have to bend the knee to folks that know more about this than you do, that you need to be able to collaborate with in order to be successful.
Right.
Right. Those are my two pieces of advice. But we were reintroduced through one of the newest members of the Flower Hire team, Aisha Alves, who was able to get in touch with you and also we started the dialogue before we had hired her. And what I really want you to expand a little bit more on, like, what if you're interested in this plant and you're trying to find a home. Obviously, Aisha had a thriving CPG sales career and started off here doing entry-level recruiting, right? Because she wanted to learn this industry, so the value of doing that in this thing. But what's your advice for job seekers that are like, I want my career to be cannabis?
I would read, say for instance, I would read, you don't have to read the whole thing, but Jorge Cervantes' book on growing cannabis, right? Just leaf through it, see what the process is, and also learn all the terms.
It's a big book.
Oh, it's a big book, but it's a big industry, and you want a job, you got to learn it.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's a test at the end too. And if you fill out all the questions, he sends you a pound of weed.
That is incredible.
It's in the book. You got to get to the end though, to get to that part.
That is incredible. Well, there is lots of educational resources out there, and I think that is where it starts. And it's just
read everything.
Read everything, yeah.
Also go into your local dispensary and talk to a bud tender. See how much they know. Right. Ask about the products. Look at effects.
When you were back and you were looking for your sister, and you went into a collective and you were looking for an edible, like, how do you improve the retail experience for the inexperienced consumer? Because I think it's incredibly non-uniform. There's some shops that do it really, really well, and there's a lot that don't. And at the end of the day, society's vision of working in the cannabis industry is their impression of how much a bud tender likes their job and how knowledgeable they are, right? How do you think we can consumers, when they have choice, when there's enough shops open, and when the market is more mature, they're going to go to the places with the best experience. But right now, like, how do we improve that?
I think you improve the attrition rate of bud tenders, because you and I both know, I think the average is 6 months. So
it's likely less.
Yeah. So what you have to do is start
2
at
to
the
3
top.
months.
Right. You talk to the dispensary owners and say, you need to treat everyone down here equally. When you get samples, you are sharing with every bud tender. If you ask for education from the brands, because it's free, the reps will come in and show you everything. You bring all of that into your staff. You then talk to your staff. How are you today? What do you need? What don't you know? Right? Also print out sheets. It says, what is a sativa? What is a sativa hybrid? What is an indica? What is an indica hybrid? Then go through all the effects, then go through terpenes, and then in your store, list the brands that fall into this so they can have a sheet and just see it rather than going up to the wall and go, I think that's indica. Let me go get the box and show you. That, educate your bud tenders and really appreciate them. And then they will say to someone, how are you doing? What do you need? Right? Because if you say to them that first thing, the moment they come in, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? They're going to pass it through to their clients.
Create that sense of community within your staff, and then we'll extend that community to the folks that come in there and onboard them.
Yep.
Give them materials to be successful. I love that. This has been really fun. I know it has to end. The sunset is almost down. Can we just appreciate, it's all good in this world.